For me is to always do my research on an audition. Whoever the casting or the creative or the choreographer may be, is to sort of look ahead of the game on what they may like, on preference on styling, preference on freestyle if you're asked to move freely in the room. What choreography are you going to expect? And again, they could surprise you on the day. It could be something completely different, but it's having like an inset and a mindset of what that could potentially be. So you're geared up for that. So you're not just walking in like the blind leading the blind. I feel like the more you can help yourself and do your research, the better. To go in and be bold, be yourself, to always be attentive in the room. I feel like obviously when it's a busy audition, if you're just at the back and nobody can see you, your chances are probably slim of getting seen until you may be in a smaller group to camera. But then how are you going to cope in that moment? I'd say just always like ask to switch lines, ask questions when necessary, but not also for the sake of asking questions, if that makes sense. Just draw attention to yourself in the best way possible.
Welcome to Studio Sessions, a video series for creative performers. Each week we go behind the scenes on the shoots and sit down with guests to discuss their careers, the creative industry, and share the lessons they've learned along the way. Cool, welcome to the show.
Hello.
How's your day been today?
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Do you want to introduce yourself so people know who you are?
Of course. My name is Devon Young and I'm a professional artist and dancer.
Cool. So how did you first get into becoming a professional dancer?
So my journey started a long time ago through gymnastics, actually. And then I had a really good friend that was dancing alongside doing gymnastics, and she sort of introduced me to go into dance. And then it was just a part of me. Like I couldn't stop. I was there all the time. I then knew that I wanted to extend it further within like training after school. So I did start dance college at 16 years old because I didn't really feel like there was much for me in my hometown or my local area. So I made the move and went to train for 3 years at a big dance college in London.
How does it feel leaving home at 16? Because that's very young.
Yeah, it was quite daunting at the time. I think to move to a city from like a little small local town and not have any friends or family or even sort of any relatives that lived like close by, that was quite a big step for me, but I was just ready and raring to go, and I knew that the opportunity lacked within my local area, so I was just like, let's go, I've got this opportunity, let's take it and roll with it.
And so like landing in London at 16, how did it feel, and what was your kind of like approach to kind of making new friends and kind of like trying to enter that world?
Yeah, I think being confident in what I was doing was important, and obviously going into a huge establishment in the centre of London was almost like having like several new friends from day one. But obviously understanding your circle and knowing where you sit in terms of a friendship group was to navigate your way through that at such a young age was quite difficult. But I feel like I felt really lucky and was always surrounded by great people, so that was a massive support system from the get-go, really. And obviously having my family and friends back me and give me all their support, like I wouldn't be where I am today without them.
And would you have any advice to someone who's going to college at 16? Because obviously I imagine most people there are probably 18.
Yes.
So how does it feel kind of being that younger person? What's your advice to someone who's in that position?
I think just to stay true to yourself, to know your boundaries, to know when to be safe and to know when to be human outside of whatever it is that you're going away and doing at that young age, and just to be willing to learn. I feel like you can learn so much from everyone around you, you know, even having just general whereabouts day to day, but also in a working environment and in a training environment is just focusing on yourself, but to not be too overwhelmed because obviously you are still so young and you're still growing up. And you almost, at 16, you miss the uni side to it. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you're straight in and then you go from like a normal school, like 9 till 3, to then going into these crazy days of like an 8 o'clock start to an 8 o'clock finish. It can be quite overwhelming, but the best thing that I ever did, and I personally wouldn't have changed it to have gone later. I have no regrets in going at 16.
Because when you graduate and you come out a few years younger than everyone else, and you're kind of like, you've got a few more years of kind of training ahead of you. Yeah,
exactly. And I'm an August baby, so I literally just turned 16 when I came, and I actually graduated at 18 because we graduated in the June-July time, and then I turned 19 in the August. So yeah, I think I'm just used to doing everything from a young perspective, but also, you know, moving away from home and not having your parents or anyone around you to spoon feed you was a massive way of growing up as well. Like I do feel like being mature was important for me, so I feel like I grew up very quickly. Has its positives and negatives, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
So you've graduated and you've entered the world of like professional dance. What does that look like at that time, and like how did you kind of make that transition?
Yeah, I think navigating your way from training and having such routine and scheduling to then almost feeling like you're in the big wide world on your own was quite scary. And obviously an establishment and a college set you up to be prepared for what it's like of life after graduation. But it's a lot trickier than you think it is. So again, it's keeping consistent within your training personally now, because you're not being spoon-fed the 8 a.m. jazz, the 10 o'clock ballet, the 12 o'clock singing. It's you've got to create your own routine and your own schedule. So life after graduation for me wasn't easy by any means. I felt like I had to still push my class, still push the gym, stay on fitness, stay connected within the world of auditions and agents. And luckily I was grateful and lucky enough to have got an agent from my third year productions. But even building a relationship with them on the outside of school and college, being in auditions and being available to just be on hand to go to this and to that and to the other, and sort of just like swaying your whole entire life and career to that business, and to really like push yourself to want it. Because if you're not your own motivator and your own sort of let's go, then that can be quite tricky as well. Like you've got to have your own confidence and your own motivation to get going. Yeah. And it's not easy.
So coming on to today, let's go talk about the first look, and what was that and why did you bring that?
So my first look today was just a grey suit. Wanted to keep it.
Jacket on there?
Yes, well the jacket is currently being shown now, modelled. But I just wanted to keep it quite corporate, quite simple. I do have a lot of love for fashion alongside dance, and I'm quite particular in my style and what I'm seen wearing, and that just is so simple but so chic, and is just a bit of me down to a T really. So that was my aim of the game with the first look.
And how kind of because obviously when you kind of come to a photo shoot you have potentially anything to pick from.
Yeah.
What was it that kind of made you pick that thing, and how do you feel like that fitted into what you needed in your portfolio?
Good question. I feel like, again, just wanted to sit more on the neutral, like corporate, here I am, just wearing a plain outfit and this is what you're getting, but also like selling myself. And I felt like that fitted into my portfolio quite well to, not be doing anything too crazy to stand out, but being authentic and true to myself, which is like one of my massive tips to anybody, is just to always stay true to yourself. So yeah, that was the main reason behind that one.
And also, as you're talking now, it's kind of making me think like, if everyone goes for the same look because there's certain things bang on trend right now, then when someone's casting, they're having 20 pictures of people who look the same.
Yeah.
Whereas I suppose if you can like stick to your own style and have something that's truly you, that's probably going to be a bit different to someone else's. So it allows you to stand out a little bit more within that casting process.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, like we all clock onto trends and we want to fit in and we want to do what everyone else is doing. But if you don't have that niche bracket that makes you, again, how are you supposed to stand out in a room full of 50 when there may only be 10 jobs? There may only be 5 jobs. There may only be 2 jobs. Like, what's going to make you stand out for you? So, like just going back to like advice on that would to always just be staying true to yourself, but with a slight kick of A, B, C, D, and just trusting it and going with it. And at the end of the day, if everybody else in the room is wearing the same top and you're wearing a different one, it may work for that casting team or it may not, but at least you've stayed true to yourself.
And in terms of like being in the room as well, what's your advice to someone going in for an audition, or how do you approach an audition process?
For me is to always do my research on an audition. Whoever the casting or the creative or the choreographer may be, is to sort of look ahead of the game on what they may like, on preference on styling, preference on freestyle if you're asked to move freely in the room. What choreography are you going to expect? And again, they could surprise you on the day. It could be something completely different, but it's having like an inset and a mindset of what that could potentially be. So you're geared up for that. So you're not just walking in like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
I feel like the more you can help yourself and do your research, the better. To go in and be bold, be yourself, to always be attentive in the room. I feel like obviously when it's a busy audition, if you're just at the back and nobody can see you, your chances are probably slim of getting seen, and until you may be in a smaller group to camera. But then how are you going to cope in that moment? I'd say just always like ask to switch lines, ask questions when necessary, but not also for the sake of asking questions, if that makes sense. Just draw attention to yourself in the best way possible.
Yeah, I think something I remember someone saying to me once is always have a question in your mind when you meet someone, because I remember like going to this there's like a band had kind of released this like new album, and they did like a little mini show in a record shop, and then everyone who went kind of with Pink as part of your ticket, you got a record and they signed it, so you got to meet them, and that was really cool. I went up and I was just like, that was really cool, and then like moved on, and I was like, I didn't have a question there. And then like my friend who I was with just mentioned that he happened to see them at the show in LA like years ago, and then asked them something about that, and then a conversation sparked, and I was just like, there was such a missed opportunity there. I think it's always great to have, like, if there's people you look up to, have a question in your mind that one day if you ever bumped into them, even if the chance is like 1 in a million, you would ask them that question. Because if you just go to someone who you respect and be like, I think you're great, they've probably heard that from like 100 people before.
True. Very true.
Whereas if you go to them and say, why was the reason that you did this in this certain piece that you put together or something, that's going to stop them in the tracks and be like, you're making them think. And I think that's a really nice way to build relationships, is through those kind of questionings. Yeah,
definitely. I couldn't agree more. And again, it's being confident enough to have that transparency in a conversation with somebody. And it's not to be like, hi, look at me. It's you're being genuine, and you're wanting to network, and you're wanting to connect with people. And I think in this big wide world that is the dance industry and the creative industry, you have to just be bold, and you have to be okay with speaking to people and networking, because 9 times out of 10, that's what's going to get you in the room, and that's what is going to get you the job, as well as being an amazingly talented human, a nice human, a professional human, somebody that can turn up on time and have the etiquette, correct, and look the part as well as be the part, but being confident in just having a conversation with somebody and making yourself apparent.
I was listening to it yesterday, and they were talking about networking, and they refer to, instead of thinking of networking, think of it as professional friendships.
Yeah.
Because I think as soon as you have that approach, it's not like, I'm just going to suck up to this person because they can get me where I want to get to.
Yes.
It's how can we have a professional friendship? Because I think if you have relationships with people within your industry, jobs are more likely to come.
Yeah, definitely. I think being a nice human over anything, that always should come first. I always say human over dancer. That's sort of a big moral that I've tried to stick to over the years of being in this industry, and being a professional. And yeah, I do think that's a massive thing. It's very important.
So coming on to the second look from today, what was that, and what made you bring that?
Second look today was just a pair of dark denim jeans with a little matching loungewear underwear set with a pop of red with a leather jacket, which I saw that online and I was like, yeah, that has to be me. Red is just like my favourite colour at the moment anyway. And I thought, obviously, in terms of standing out and just branching out in terms of portfolio and having a little bit of colour in there, that was my idea of that, but also still sticking to like the 90s vibe. I am a 90s baby. And just giving a little bit of like day-to-day like casual style, but still giving streetwear.
I remember like as we were shooting that as well, you were saying that you had 2 different pairs of jeans that you were going to wear, and one of them was a bit lighter. But it was almost like once you'd got them and tried them together, then you realised that actually one of these fit the other one better. 100%.
Yeah, I literally did an ASOS haul. And was shopping for days for this shoot, but just after seeing everything together, I was like, yeah, those are too light. These are the perfect colour, especially with the red as well. Like, it really complemented the red with the darker denim. So yeah, that was my second look.
And back to talking about relationships we were before, what would your advice be to someone coming into the industry to help them build those kind of networks and relationships?
Being consistent, that would be my best advice. If you're going and taking class, if you're going to an audition, being consistent with that, but also variating your classes and variating where you share your time and where you spend your money. I feel like sometimes if you take the same class every single week for the next 6 months, say, you're not really variating or pushing your versatility within your styles. So for instance, you could go and take a jazz class one week, and then the next week you could go and take more of a commercial or a hip hop based class. The week after that, you could go and take a tap class if you wanted to. The week after that, you could go and take a ballet. And then in the space of 4 weeks, you've trained and revisited 4 different styles. Whereas if you're taking the same commercial class with the same choreographer for those 4 weeks in that month, yes, you're going in and you're learning steps, you're pushing your pick up, you're pushing your muscle memory, but you are staying like quite bland in that training style. So again, like open your doors, open your windows to numerous opportunities. And at the end of the day, you never know what you're going to get in an audition room. One moment you could be doing technical exercise from the corner, the next moment you could be doing crump. So I think to just try and have that confidence in as many styles as you can, but also knowing your niche and knowing what you're good at, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, but then what can you go in and offer to that room that they may not have already seen today.
Yeah. And how would you balance, like, say if you're going to a certain class to kind of like meet people and kind of be consistent there, then if every single week you're going to different classes, how do you kind of make sure that you're not just meeting someone once and then kind of like going away?
No, of course. I think obviously, like, because we're now our own boss and you're your own, you know, when you're freelance and when you're self-employed, you rule your life. Do you know what I mean? You rule your schedule. So I think for the inconsistency of seeing that person only once a month, maybe go twice a month, or when you're first starting out, to build that connection. And even if you literally just go over to the teacher at the end of the session, thank you so much, I really enjoyed that class. Is there anywhere else that you teach? Are there any other studios that you teach at? Just so they're going, that's a familiar face that I'm now seeing, you know, twice a month. Or say if they teach on a Monday and a Tuesday, you go on the Monday, and then the week after you go on the Tuesday, and maybe that opens another day to be able to go and take somebody else's class. And obviously, you know, that being said, like, classes are quite expensive. Some people need to be able to work to be able to afford classes, and like we all do, we've all got our muggle on the side of dancing and performing and having that glorious life. But, you know, it's not overdoing it to still make sure you can be human first. Yeah. Just going back to that human first again.
So going on to the third look from today, what was that? What made you bring that?
So the third look, I saw this jacket online and it was a big fur number.
Love this jacket.
Love this jacket. I literally saw it and I was like, okay, I'm going to order that. And then it came and I was like, wow, I need to keep that. So the label was straight off. I said, yeah, I'm keeping you anyway. And basically just to pair that, I actually just threw a few things in last minute, and then it was yourself that said, why don't you pair it with that? Which was literally just like a sports bra and like a pants, which was matching co-ord set from Bow Avenue, which is just comfy and cozy, but then styled with something that's a little bit more eye-catching. Yeah. And then with some over-the-knee boots, just to add a little bit of character in there as well. So, yeah, I didn't realise how much I loved the jacket. I loved it online, but then when it came, I was like, I love you even more.
Yeah. Also, I think when you see pictures of yourself amazing in the jacket, it's just like really helps.
I know I'm going to be obsessed.
So you teach a lot now.
I do, yes.
How is it you started doing teaching, and what is your advice to someone who's looking to get into teaching?
So I sort of, as easy as it sounds, fell into it. I started off by doing a lot of cover tutoring and cover teaching, and then I also found a massive passion and love for choreographing and creating as well. And I found that if I liked a song, I would just connect with it, and I wouldn't necessarily rush into going, there's 8/8s, but I would slowly build on it and go back to it and revisit it and be like, oh, I really like that, and I'd like to exchange with people. So then obviously when I was teaching a lot and seeing it on other bodies and seeing it within different establishments, and I just felt like a massive love for that, and to exchange with the younger generation and to see it on different people and different bodies as well as my own. So I've always had a massive love and passion for it, and just giving back to the community and giving back down to the younger generation. I almost feel like I had wish that I had a little bit more of that guidance when I was in my younger years. So that's how I sort of fell into teaching. And yeah, just to be able to share that your expertise and your knowledge with other people. And for most people that are super grateful to have you and to have your advice and to learn your steps and to learn your movement. And at the end of the day, the commercial world is such a humongous bracket of styles that to just be you and for people to appreciate that is really heartwarming. And I think I've found a massive relationship with just owning what I do and then realising that, okay, you're going to get people that don't like what you do, but you're also going to get a lot of people that love what you do. And I think that's quite special, just to have people be grateful and feel like they're learning from you, you know?
In terms of like the guidance that you give as well, is there anything that people ask you the same question repeatedly?
Yeah, I do get a lot of the same sentences and questions sort of remixed. You know, what's the easiest way to get an agent? What's the easiest way to work? How do you stay consistent in your work, in your line of work? What's the longevity of the career? How do you build connections? That's probably one of the most popular questions. How do you build the connections with the working creatives? And how do they trust you? And again, like, I'm not even sure whether I have the answer to this day. You know, everyone's journey is completely different. And I know by no means mine has been easy. I've had to work for everything that I have done, graft, hustle, every single day of my life to be where I am today. And I just think if I can do it, then, and you're so keen and you're so passionate and you're so confident in what you want to do, then anything is possible.
Yeah. So moving on to the final look for today, what was that and why did you bring it up?
So my final outfit was an all black look. I went for like a really chic black fishnet, but like not too revealing tight. And it's more of a fashion tight than it is like a dancer tight, which I loved. It's from one of my favourite brands, Sisters and Seekers. Just going to shout them out. You've
been out of college for a while now and had quite a successful career doing all sorts of different things. What have been some of your highlights and things that kind of looking back you're like really proud of?
One huge career highlight for me was being in a Disney movie, which was Aladdin. And I sort of wasn't expecting that humongous opportunity at such a young age because it was one of my earlier jobs when I was younger. I remember it coming out and literally my whole entire family went to the cinema, the local cinema in my hometown to watch it. And it was like, I was just remember pointing myself out to my granddad going, that's me. And he was like so proud. And yeah, my grandparents, my mum, my dad, my sister, everyone was just so proud. And that was really special to see my name in credits. I do love working on like TV and film, but I do have such a love and such a buzz for live performances as well.
Do you remember the first live performance you did?
The first one that I did, which was live and televised, was BGT with Brian Freeman. And it was like, talk about throw yourself in at the deep end, but it just opened my eyes on like new levels. And I was like, wow, this is sensational.
Do you think it was because of that kind of it really gave you that buzz to kind of keep going on it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you obviously see and feel snippets of what it feels like to be a working professional dancer, and like that just makes you want to work hard. It makes you want to hustle. It makes you want to grind. Don't get me wrong, it's not all sunshine and roses. There are obviously like down days and down times and, oh, I'm not working when everyone else is. Like, we're all our own worst enemy in that sense. But I think if you've got the passion and the drive and the confidence to trust yourself and to know that you are you and nobody else is you and you can hold your own in any room, then that's the beauty of it. And if there's anything that I've worked on along the years, I think it's that.
How do you kind of cope in those times where you're not necessarily working and you go on Instagram and see everyone else is? How do you kind of stay positive and kind of like get yourself through it?
Yeah, good question. Logging out of your Instagram can be quite helpful. Just again, going back to that support system, like I'm eternally grateful for those around me that have my back and that look over me when I'm maybe having a bit of a downtime or a down day or a down month. I would be nowhere without my mum and dad, without my sister, without my partner, without my friends and my close circle, that I know if I was having a moment of like disbelief or worry, they would just be on the other end of the phone or they'd be there within seconds to just cheer me up and let's go have a coffee, let's go have a caramel latte and make everything a little bit better. But again, it's like reminding yourself why you do it, why you get out of bed every single day, why for all of those years you've grafted and worked so hard. It's just reminding yourself of those little things. And already, like, what I tend to do sometimes is to look back and to reflect on what I have achieved. And to always think about the longevity of your career moving forward. So even if there's a blank space of a few months where it might be quite quiet and it might be a bit dry and you have to work your muggle on the side to be able to get through and pay your rent, you know, like, what could that be though this time next year? What could that be in 6 months' time? And I think those things are always going to keep you going if they're in the back of your mind. And to also be creative and passionate about other things alongside of dance as well. Like, I know teaching is one of those things for me, but there's also other things that I really love that keep me busy and that can take my mind off, say, 7 people being on a job and I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
But knowing that I'm capable of being on that job, but my journey just didn't take me there that time. So yeah, it's by no means easy. I would be absolutely blank right lying if I sat here and said, oh yeah, it's so simple. It's really, really not. And there's so many different avenues to navigate your way through within this big wide world. But I think, again, going back to staying true to yourself, holding your own, being you, and being that version of you, and being grown and mature and confident within that, and having the right people around you, whether that circle is huge or whether it's small. Just be grateful for that. I think that's super important.
Boom. This has been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this episode, please share it. If you want to see more of these, click subscribe. And if you've got any questions or anything you want to ask, just drop them in the comments below. See you in the next session.